As formulaic as horror can be, the genre is also often concerned with subverting expectations and delivering something the audience won't ever see coming. And honestly, what's more surprising than when a horror film dupes us, the viewer, into cheering on the monstrous entity we should probably be rooting against? Now, we do already have a video out on this very topic, but there were just so many more to talk about. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie for What Culture, and here are 10 more horror movies that tricked you into rooting for the monster. Number 10, Freddy vs. Jason. If you want to make the audience root for an unsavory character, there's no easier way to do it than simply introducing an even worse character for them to do battle with. And that's exactly what happened in Freddy vs. Jason, where despite being one of cinema's great mass murderers, Jason Voorhees near enough becomes the hero of the movie when facing off against Freddy Krueger. After all, it's Freddy who resurrected Jason and manipulated him into killing again by taking the form of his dear late mother. If left to his own devices, Jason is a considerably lesser threat than Freddy, who wishes to rise to full dream-invading power once again. The movie's human characters straight up admit that Jason is the lesser of two evils here, and so the film as a whole clearly encourages fans to root for Jason, even if Freddy vs. Jason's core appeal simply lies in seeing these two genre icons finally duke it out. Number 9, Dog Soldiers. Dog Soldiers revolves around a squad of soldiers who end up fighting off a fleet of werewolves in the Scottish Highlands. They eventually meet up with zoologist Megan, who helps the wounded soldiers and quickly establishes herself as a dependable ally who takes her rightful place as the movie's de facto femme fatale. About that. Megan later reveals that she's actually one of the werewolves, and though she initially hoped the soldiers could help her break free from the werewolf family she was entered into against her will, she eventually decides to betray the squaddies when she realises there's no hope of escape. In the balmy finale, Megan turns into a werewolf and holds her own against the soldiers, until she's finally killed in an explosion. As horror fans, we should certainly be suspicious of just about everybody in a werewolf movie, yet Megan's badass vibe made just about everyone let their guard down. Number 8, Upgrade. Upgrade turned out to be a more timely film than writer-director Leigh Whannell likely intended, chronicling how the beneficial applications of AI can so easily give way to something much, much worse. The movie revolves around Gray Trace, who is rendered a quadriplegic after being shot in the neck at the start of the film. However, his fortunes change when he's offered a STEM implant, an AI-infused chip that can help a paralyzed person regain their motor functions. More than this, STEM offers to help Gray get revenge on the people who shot him and killed his wife, even taking control of his body and carrying out grisly executions with his consent, at least at first. Given the bone-crunching badassery of these sequences, it's incredibly easy to cheer on this uncanny fusion of man and technology. But of course, STEM turns out to be Upgrade's true overarching antagonist. At the film's end, STEM successfully breaks Gray's brain, allowing STEM free control of his mind and body, while Gray's consciousness believes it's in a blissful dream state. Those sexy kill sequences sure made it easy to ignore the inevitable truth that AI will be the end of us all. Number 7, Halloween Kills. There's one easy way for a horror movie to make the audience cheer for the masked killer. Have all the human characters be so spectacularly stupid that there's really no other choice. Because Halloween Kills forces protagonist Laurie Strode into a hospital bed for the vast majority of its runtime, the focus shifts instead towards the angry mob of Haddonfield residents, led by Tommy Doyle. In perhaps cinema's all-time most shallow critique of mob mentality, of course, the group ends up getting an innocent man killed, which combined with their relentless utterance of the hilariously inane catchphrase, "Evil dies tonight," makes it easy to beg for Michael Myers to slaughter the lot of them. And satisfyingly, that's precisely what he does at the film's end, when they inexplicably take turns beating the tar out of him, but fail to finish the job, allowing Michael an opening to rise up and brutally clean house. It's a shame about what happened to Laurie's daughter Karen, but that scarcely organised rabble of dribbling sheep absolutely had their deaths coming. Number 6, Kujo. Kujo's title character is about as sympathetic as horror movie monsters get, and that's because Kujo's really a good boy who never wanted to hurt anyone. Were it not for the poor doggo being bitten by a rabid bat, he never would have gone on a people-murdering rampage. And while we're certainly not encouraged to cheer on Kujo as he tears humans limb from limb, we certainly want him to get better. Though there's no cure for rabies, had Kujo's owner acted quickly and taken him to get a vaccination booster, maybe things would have worked out differently. Or perhaps that's just grasping at straws. All the same, because Kujo is so damn adorable when he hasn't got human entrails slobbered over his gob, you just want things to turn out alright for him. Sadly, the only thing that passes for alright here is the climactic release of death when he's finally put out of his misery. Kujo proves one of the ironclad golden rules of cinema. Audiences are helpless against the charms of a cute dog. Number 5. The Last Man on Earth. 1964's The Last Man on Earth was the very first adaptation of Richard Matheson's post-apocalyptic horror novel I Am Legend, and remains the only one to fully engage with the notion that the human protagonist is very far from a hero. We naturally spend most of the film fully behind Dr. Robert Morgan, the apparent sole survivor of a plague that has turned the rest of humanity into a fleet of undead vampiric creatures which Morgan systematically hunts and kills. But at the movie's end, Morgan learns that a vaccine has been developed that helps keep the infection at bay, and many of the creatures he's murdered were actually sentient humans. More to the point, Morgan's murderous ways effectively cause said humans to view him as the bogeyman himself. This reveal so perfectly exploited humanity's solipsistic assumption that they're the default good force in the world, and anything vaguely other must be bad, even if it's actually still human. Number 4. Ghost Ship. Ghost Ship's plot kicks off when a salvage expert, Jack Ferriman, spots a ship adrift in the Bering Sea and invites a crew to help bring it in. There's nothing even remotely untoward about Jack. He seems to be a completely chill, likeable, even sweet guy, and so the audience has every reason to want him to survive. That is, until it's revealed near the end of the movie that Jack is actually a demonic entity that provokes people to sin, kills them, and then ferries, get it, their souls to hell for the devil. It turns out Jack wasn't lying about being a salvage expert. He just happened to be trading in human cargo, unbeknownst to everyone else. Ghost Ship may not be a great movie, outside of that undeniably amazing opening kill scene of course, but by making the most of Desmond Harrington's disarming looks and demeanour, it was able to play us all like a damn fiddle. Number 3. Resident Evil Apocalypse. It's tough to know quite what the filmmakers behind Resident Evil Apocalypse were thinking with their conception of franchise icon Nemesis. Despite being arguably the most iconic villain in the series behind Albert Wesker and a genuinely terrifying entity in the games, this movie made a bewildering choice to manipulate fans into rooting for Nemesis. Picking up from the cliffhanger ending of the first film, it's eventually confirmed that Nemesis is indeed Alice's pal Matt, having undergone an experimental mutation process courtesy of Umbrella. This immediately makes Nemesis a sympathetic monster, far from his straight-up terrifying depiction in the games, and by the time he's getting beaten by Alice in a fistfight, it's basically impossible not to pity the big lug. And on top of that, the third act engineers a ridiculous face turn for Nemesis, who turns on Major Kane and the Umbrella troops, ultimately sacrificing himself to save Alice. Though many fans felt that Nemesis's portrayal in Apocalypse was tantamount to character assassination, others argued that it brought more nuance to the villain by giving him his own antagonist to wage war against. Number 2. Jennifer's Body. The Megan Fox starring horror comedy Jennifer's Body has enjoyed a significant re-evaluation in recent years, especially in light of the Me Too movement, revolving as it does around a young woman, Jennifer, who becomes demonically possessed after an indie rock band sacrifices her to Satan in exchange for fame and fortune. So to be clear, Jennifer is first and foremost a victim who didn't ask to be turned into a succubus who must feed on human flesh in order to survive. And had she stopped at just getting revenge on Low Shoulder, the band who sacrificed her, it would be easy to cheer her on all the way to the end credits. But considering that her bloodlust drives her to kill numerous local boys under the guise of making out with them, there certainly comes a turning point where that sympathy evaporates, and the audience is instead compelled to cheer on her best pal Needy to finish Jennifer off, as she eventually does. Number 1. Blade 2. Blade 2 basically lures the audience into a false sense of security by making them assume that if it's good enough for Blade, it's surely good enough for them. The sequel sees the Daywalker reluctantly join forces with vampire overlord Eli Damaskinos to take on the Reapers, a strain of primal mutant vampires who feast on humans and vamps alike. Now, in fairness, Blade is acutely aware that this alliance is short-lived and prone to implode, but all the same, for as long as they can serve a purpose to Blade and the other heroes, we too can kinda sorta get on board with them. If nothing else, it's a novel twist for a sequel. Yet of course, by the third act, Damaskinos betrays Blade, where it's revealed that he was actually the cause of the Reaper outbreak all along. While Blade's and our own mental truce with the vampires was always a tentative one, Damaskinos really couldn't resist but go full a-hole, could he? As I mentioned at the beginning, this is not the only list we have on this topic, so for the original video, click the link on the screen now.